Hello, everybody.
Sure.
Right. Natalia, are we waiting for Nikki or?
Let me reach out to her because oh, she's coming. She's right here.
Okay, yeah. There we go. Perfect. All right, here we go. I will call this meeting to order. It is 5:00 p.m. This is our regular meeting of Board of Trustees, January 25th, 2021. We will begin with our roll call. Trustee Andrews. Oh, you gotta unmute, Terry.
Sorry, here.
Thanks. Trustee Capel.
Here.
Trustee Cervantes.
Here.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Here.
All right, let us sort out the agenda real quick. So do we have anything that needs to be added, subtracted, reordered on the agenda? Any issues on anything?
I have no changes.
Okay, hearing none, I will ask for a motion to approve and adopt the agenda as it appears in your board package.
I
I'll move.
Board package.
Okay, I heard Rush first, so I'm going to go with that. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Okay, perfect. Moved and seconded. We'll do a roll call vote like we always do. Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Capel.
Aye.
Trustee Cervantes.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson. Did I hear an aye? Sorry, Camille, I didn't hear an aye.
Yes.
I'm sure
aye.
you- Okay, perfect. I am going to turn up my sound so I can hear you a little bit better. Hang on one second. Oh, okay, fantastic. So as of right now, I have no public comments on any non-agenda items, except for the fact that it snowed today, which I think is a matter for great public commentary. I am astonished that we had frozen water falling from the sky. So there you go. We have our consent calendar, which includes all the usual suspects. It also includes some adjustments in the minutes. You'll see that we neglected to include a public comment in the correct order. So we've just adjusted those minutes to reflect that comment, and it's now been included. So we've got a couple of different meeting minutes, as well as our minutes from the board retreat and our departmental monthly reports. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Perfect. All right, motion's been made and seconded. As usual at this point, we'll pause briefly for discussion of any items in the consent calendar that anybody would like to address, if there are any. So I will open the floor for any discussion of items included in the consent calendar.
I mean, I'll just say real quick, I feel like we're amazed every time we all come together, but a huge kudos again to the staff. You read through these updates and reports, and it continues to amaze me what the creativity and what folks are able to accomplish in the middle of this pandemic. So a huge kudos to once again to all of our staff at the libraries.
Here, here. Any other observations?
I have an observation.
Please.
I was fumbling around a little bit because just about every page I've got my yellow highlighter going and so on. And you could pick a person, a staff person that's doing a report every month, and just stop on that one a little bit. And today, I'd like to recognize Isabel Briggs, who put a really nice flow chart in her report about things that are going on, went several pages. And for the first time, for me, it sort of visualized the kind of work that everybody's putting in. Of course, later in the packet, there's a big list of work, curiosity and connection and so on, that folks have been doing. But I'm really proud of the staff and the supervisors for putting together such a bolus of work. It seems like you're really going to be able to hit the ground running. I think Isabel also did a YouTube video that I watched about Cloud Library, how to operate it, and it taught me all kinds of new things. So that ever expanding YouTube catalog that we have is really terrific. And then there was Aaron, and I'm so sorry I forget Aaron's last name here, but I saw him mentioned as a person who's recently finished his library education, which is terrific. And I think we need to call that out every time. People that are getting ahead in the library field, and they're right here working with us. So as usual, just a terrific job to the staff. Great focus, really good focus, and way to document what you're doing.
Thanks very much for that. Any other comments that anybody would like to add? Okay. Then at this time, the motion having been made and seconded, we'll go ahead and move to a vote to approve the consent calendar. We'll conduct a roll call vote. So here we go. Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Capel.
Aye.
Trustee Cervantes.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Aye.
And that's an aye vote from me as well. Terrific. Okay, that brings us on to our reporting section. So I am just looking through the list to see if we have people here. Okay, perfect. It looks like we've got Bridget and Mark as well from the Friends. So let's go with the foundation first. Do we have a report from the foundation?
I'm sorry, I was just trying to turn on my sound. Yes, we do.
Okay.
Just have to get it open here. All righty. Well, here we are. A new day dawns for all of us. We began 2021 with an experienced executive team that is consisting of myself as president, Lola Warlick-Bryant as secretary, and Mark Mariscal as treasurer. Our standing committees will continue to work together to accomplish all of our goals. Our marketing is chaired by Leslie Dink and comprised of Claudia Kitty Bustamante, Steve Aranda, and Anita Lawler. Our finance committee is chaired by Mark Mariscal and comprised of Dawn DeGrius Smith and Anita Lawler. Board Affairs is chaired by Kushan Bell and comprised of Lola Warlick-Bryant and Renee Hines. We held our first two planning sessions on January 13th. And during that 2.5 hours, which was facilitated, by the way, by Danielle Milan, who is the Director of Development and Planning for the Las Vegas Public Libraries. Thank you, Nikki, for finding her for us. We welcomed 4 new directors, Steve Aranda, Renee Hines, Anita Lawler, and Dawn DeGrius Smith. And we welcomed our new 2021 trustee liaison, Rushmore Cervantes. We also recognized and thanked Nora Hampton, who's leaving the board now, and Jason Capel for his service this past year as trustee liaison. Nikki Winslow and Chloe Cavalier presented an overview of the Altadena Library District Strategic Roadmap, and then led a discussion to prepare us for the challenge of reimagining our mission statement. We wanted to rewrite it so that it aligns better with the mission of the library. So while it's not yet formally approved, we have agreed on this working statement. Our mission is bringing people, ideas, and resources together through fundraising and advocacy in support of our Altadena libraries. Our final session for planning is this Wednesday, and our primary objective for that session is setting goals for 2021 that will be grounded in the suggestions that have been offered by library staff regarding the library's needs for 2021. And I'm happy to email anyone a brief survey of both of our sessions at the end of this week if anyone wants it. Then in response to an invitation from Director Nikki Winslow and Trustee President Katie Clark, I was pleased to join with Marnie Brown, President of Friends, to represent the foundation in the first quarterly meeting among the leadership of the 4 library entities. I look forward to continued collaborative and informative relationships in service to the library and to the community of Altadena. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Bridget.
Sure.
Hey, Mark, I see you there with us as well. Are you reporting for the Friends, or did you have a foundation thing to add?
No, I think I'll say something for the Friends.
Okay,
only,
terrific.
Only because maybe you already said something at the beginning of the meeting, but and I wasn't on the last Friends board meeting. But one, they are they've permanently now made the meeting the first Saturday of the month, and so I don't know if it's Terry. I don't know who's the Friends liaison now. With the
Camila.
changeover. Oh, Camila. Oh, good. And nice to meet you. Because in print form for a long time, and so the Altadena magazine that comes to about 4,000 homes, that has it still had the old date on there, and so that's going to change in the March edition. But so it's pretty set now to always be the first Saturday at noon. The second thing is Art Rooney died, and for those of you that don't know who Art is or was, Art was a longtime Friends member, contributed thousands of dollars, but really contributed thousands of hours of volunteer service. And so somebody that the library has missed for the last couple of years. His wife died about, I don't know, 5 years ago now, I think, Sharon.
Mm.
And but Art was really a very good guy. Somebody helped me 20 years ago, has helped many people, and he will be missed. So officially, it's just nice that we can recognize somebody. The Friends had recognized him many times over the years. The Board of Trustees had recognized him over the years, and he's gone to be with his wife now. So that's all I have from the Friends' point of view.
Well,
But
thank you. Thanks so much.
And I will say this, the Friends did try, and they still are through emails, and Bridget's doing the same thing, trying to find some people to apply for the oversight committee.
Awesome.
And so, we are trying to find some people. So hopefully you've gotten some applications in, but it's a tough one. And so I'll tell you, I had a good discussion with somebody for about 10 or 15 minutes specifically, saying the importance of having people outside of the Friends and the foundation realm, and the trustees can't do it. And it's really to have another set of eyes that really helps the library district, move forward on the expenditures of their dollars, because they have a business and a house, or homes in the area. So anyway, I know
Terrific.
Bridget's doing it, and the Friends are trying to do it too.
Well, we appreciate that. Thank you so much for that. And I think we have Marnie as well. Marnie, are you with us?
Oh, there's Marnie. Good. I didn't see her before. Good.
Yes, I'm here. But,
Hey,
Mark,
Marnie.
hi. Mark gave such an excellent report. That's wonderful. Thank you very much, Mark. I have nothing further to add.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry about that, Marnie. I didn't see you on the list before that, so my apologies. But thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. I got off my last work call a little bit late, but thank you for inviting me. And thank you, Mark, for filling in.
Well, and thank you to the Friends and the Foundation, of course, for all of your help and support. We are always consistently very grateful for everything that you guys do. And I'll be talking a little bit about that leadership report later in my trustee report, but I was delighted to have the chance to have that conversation with everybody as well. Okay, before we move to the director's report, I understand that we do have a public comment on a non-agendized item. So Nikki, do you have our commenter ready to go?
I do. You guys can hear me?
Terrific.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I'm gonna unmute him, and Joe, go ahead.
Yes, I'm here.
Can you guys hear him?
We can.
Okay.
All right, we've got 3 minutes. Anytime you're ready, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate board and staff of the Altadena Library District. Appreciate your time. My name is Joe Crowley. I live at 2205 Mar Vista Avenue. This is my third time using the public comment period to provide comments to the board. So apologies for any redundancies or overlapping of comments, but I just wanted to reinforce some of my comments here. I'm a district taxpayer. I'm a municipal bond investment banker. I'm a Measure Z supporter, and I'm a 10-year stakeholder in the library from our 10-year living up here. Through my time, I just wanted to address a couple points. I'm specifically responding to the introduction to debt issuance presentation at your January 8th board retreat. First, in my opinion, the presentation depicted, or literally it said the presentation depicted the district as a plain vanilla financing and recommended issuing the special tax bonds through a competitive sale to Wall Street, to the tender mercies of JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, and Goldman Sachs through a competitive bond sale. A competitive sale for an inaugural issue of Altadena Library District special tax bonds is pitting the district against credits and issuers like the Metropolitan Water District, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, Los Angeles County MTA. These are frequent, long-standing issuers, highly rated. They issue bonds all the time. Everyone knows their credit, their ratings are stable, and everyone understands who they are. They have well-established market credentials. Those are the credits and issuers who the competitive market is designed to target. That is what the GFOA debt financing recommendations are speaking to. That well understood, well conveyed credits and highly rated credits. But what we're dealing with in Altadena's Library District's $24 million authorization is unique and out. It really does not fall into that category of financing, in my opinion. Altadena Library District is unique and strong, economically and socially. It is not plain vanilla. $24 million is not a lot of money, but is 24 million is a lot of money, but is a speck on the calendar of the competitive bond market. The issue at hand really is who is going to sell the district's bonds, who the underwriter is to its long-term end-use customers, bond investors. That sort of came out on the January 8th presentation, but was sort of hidden until the end. The underwriter didn't show up on the bubble chart, but by all the questions and answers at the end, was like, oh yeah, the underwriter's going to do all this work. So I thought that was a very revealing element of the presentations.
Sir, I'm so sorry. Mr. Crowley, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but unfortunately your 3 minutes has expired. So I think we're going to have to leave it there.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to make sure that the board understands that how the bonds are sold is of paramount importance. But thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment, sir. All right. So just a reminder to anybody who's watching at home or on YouTube or any other place, we do have the opportunity to hear public comments on any of our agendized items. And you can find the instructions for how to make those comments live during this meeting at the top of the agenda. If you would like to make a public comment on a non-agendized item, we have passed the point in the agenda where we do that, but given that this is virtual and like life is hard on Zoom, we're pretty relaxed about that. So if you have a public comment at some point on an unagendized item, we can hear those later in the meetings as well. With that, we come to our director's report that begins on page 28 of your package. So Nikki, if you'd like to give us your report, please.
Sure, thank you. All right, good evening, trustees. It's so good to see all of you in this new year. As you are all aware, most of our staff have been working from home since December 7th. I also want to say how impressed I am with all of the work that is getting accomplished remotely, which you have all seen in the reports from the various managers. It's really, we've had time to focus on projects that we probably would not have time to get to otherwise, including things like the community asset mapping, building much more robust online resources, and more. So just as an update, this wasn't in my report because the conversation was had late last week and today. As of today, we have decided to keep everyone working from home until at least March 1st. There are additional guidelines that have been issued by, I'm not sure if it's the state or the county, that we're going to need to integrate before we can bring staff back into the building, including they're requiring taking temperatures, as well as adding additional questions to our daily health declaration form. I do want to give a huge shout out and thanks to Nicole Fabry for her continued research and staying on top of all of the updates that are coming from the state and county. I do think we've done a really good job of keeping our staff safe and healthy. So again, I think this is being preemptive and making sure that we're not bringing people back before it's absolutely necessary and potentially being exposed to illness. I also wanted to remind everyone to check out all of our amazing resources that I mentioned the staff are working on building at this time from home on our website. They have really been focused on purchasing more digital resources. So, you know, I always want to shout out to Cloud Library, where you get access to over 140,000 ebooks and audiobooks, as well as Hoopla, where today there was some staff conversation around where can kids find manga, and Hoopla has that, as well as graphic novels and movies and you name it. There's, I think their catalog is almost 700,000 items. So it's a wealth. And another one I wanted to point out is, as we're all stuck at home and having to cook quite a bit, we have A to Z World Foods, which has thousands of international recipes, hundreds of culture and ingredient articles to take your culinary skills to the next level. All right, so with the new year, we launched our 2021 virtual programming this month. I would please, encourage you to take a look at our programs page on the website, as well as checking out our YouTube page to see all of these new programs, as well as some tutorials that staff have created to teach patrons how to use some of those online resources that I mentioned. Not to mention children's programming and more. Helen Milner continues with her strong 2 book clubs a month, or every other Saturday she has them pretty much, and continues to have more people joining. So if you're interested in connecting with your neighbors and over books, I would encourage you to take a look at that. We've also been looking at building, to quote Chloe's line, I love this, a network of literacy champions in Altadena through the free little libraries across the town of Altadena. Kudos to Chloe, as well as Helen Milner, in identifying all of these owners, one of which I believe is Terry. We hope to help fill the little libraries with friends' donations. Chloe's created a little, not gonna think of the word, a sticker to put inside the books saying like, this has been generously donated from the friends. Learn more about the friends and join us and visit our websites, right? And we also hope to build this network of people as we're moving into doing some additional community conversations around not only the building projects, but the kinds of services and programs that the people of Altadena would like to see. It really is our goal to connect with more people that we typically aren't in conversation with, especially as we approach the design process with the buildings. I also did want to point out one of our partnerships, which is with Isabel, Chloe, and Natalia working diligently to forge a partnership with PUSD in the form of a homework helper program. This program will provide provide an opportunity for PUSD seniors to earn community service hours as they provide homework, peer support, and mentorship to fellow Altadena, Pasadena, and Sierra Madre students in grades 5 through 12. If you know of any seniors that would be interested in gaining these hours or this volunteer opportunity, the application is still open until this coming Friday, January 29th at 5 p.m. Anyone that's interested can visit our website. It's altadenalibrary.org/volunteer and fill out an application there. So spread the word. I think it's a great opportunity for, you know, the teens in our community to connect as well. I've also been busy, very busy. Anyone who's talked to me this month knows, preparing requests for proposals for both the CFD committee and the facilities committee to make sure we hire the needed consultants to get our building projects moving forward. In addition to that, I've met one-on-one with all of the trustees this month to answer questions, get to know them better, and really have some fruitful conversations about the work that we're going to be trying to accomplish this year. We're going to plan to do those on a quarterly basis. So I appreciated Katie's suggestion of doing that. So overall, as you can see, it's been a very busy year so far and is just going to continue to be. Thank you to the board for all of your continued support of the staff working from home and helping us with this phased response to bringing people back. And a thank you to all of the staff. They're a dream to work with and really a motivated, creative, and innovative group. So I'm happy to answer any questions the trustees might have.
Thank you so much, Nikki. We'll open the floor for any questions that anybody might have.
More of just a comment from me. Just sharing, it's really, I love the idea that Chloe came up with of kind of targeting the folks who've taken the time to build these little free libraries as like a starting point. That's a really cool way to start things off. The one thing I'll just point out that I learned as my, in my volunteer role as the lawn sign coordinator for Measure Z, I actually found probably 2 to 3 times as many little free libraries just driving around than what's actually registered on the website. So like, I remember I talked to one gentleman on his front porch with his kids and he's like, oh, there's that one on block that way. And there's that one on block that way. And none of them are on the website. So just like when you do have those conversations, I would just like ask like, hey, who else in the neighborhood kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and anybody that's watching, please shoot me an email letting me know if there's others that you're aware of. That is what Helen Milner's been spending a lot of time trying to identify additional ones. So thank you for that, Jason. I think it is a great opportunity to connect from across the town, as well as, identify maybe where we should build some additional ones.
Yeah, I have a comment, personally having one of them. They take a little bit, they take time, and I have to go out and refinish it every now and then and things like that, but they give too. I mean, there's people stopping by all the time, putting stuff in there, and my wife, Mary, makes a point of putting little Hot Wheels cars and, little toy soldiers and stuff. And in a day, they're gone. Who knows where they go? But there's kids coming by. And there are spaces on the different facets of that to do some promotion for whatever we're doing at the library. So there is, you could put something on the side where people see it, they're coming up to it. They would talk about progress we're making with our building projects or whatever it might be. And those could be rotated in. So they are a terrific way to get the word out.
Yeah, exactly right. That's what we're hoping to do. So thanks for having one, Terry.
Rush, go ahead.
Yeah, I just jumping on what Jason and Terry said earlier in the meeting, and I just wanted to commend you for your leadership looking at this information that you and your team put together is very impressive, considering you're all working from home and the creativity to try to ensure that we're continuing to move forward and try to figure out ways to improve the library and the services. It's evident by the work that you and your team put together. So it was kudos for the great leadership.
Thank you all. I'll share your kudos with everybody at our morning huddle.
All right. Anything else for Nikki? Okay, well, I think we're good there. Thank you so much for that. We will move on to our financial reports, which begin on page 31 of your packet. Nicole, do we have you with us?
You do, I'm here.
All right.
Okay, sorry, let me just get to the right page. I was reading ahead.
You'll know, no spoilers. You'll find out what happens.
There we go. Okay, perfect. So these financial reports are for the month of November. Remember, I'm always a couple months behind. So currently that would put us at 41.6% of our budget year. And it is still showing that negative net income, which it will until you see reports next month for December. We'll finally get that big property tax installment, and then we'll finally start to show some positive cash flow there. So we are still satisfying our reserve requirement. It is getting a little close there, but like I said, we will have that major cash inflow in December. And then we did receive some grant income. We receive this every year. We get literacy funds from the California State Library. And this is actually more than we received last year. So that's exciting, that $21,000. And then passport services, they were only open, I think, for 3 weeks. So, you know, really, really exciting that they were able to earn that amount in check income. And then I will also show more income, about that same amount, for credit card income on next month's financial statements as well. And then we did pay a big bill to Nick Partners, as Christopher told me to pronounce it, to begin work on those internet upgrades. They've been working really hard at the library. I have stopped by a couple of times, and there is a lot of wiring, but it's looking good. There's a lot going on over there. And then let's see. Oh, we did get credits. We had applied for e-content credits from SCLC. So we did receive $5,000 for that. That was exciting. So you'll show a negative $5,000 in that account. And then we did pay some for financial consulting to Columbia Capital and to Ide Bailey for just general accounting and for funds related to the CFD formation. And then we had some really great programming in November. We had the Terra program that I guess was very popular, and then Seed Library and zine workshops, which we're doing a lot of programming around zines that are also really, really popular. Those are definitely up and coming. Any questions about the financial reports?
Anything for Nicole?
Just kind of a reminder, I guess, Nicole, for all of us, that big bolus of property tax money comes in through December. And is it always like that, December and like April are the two big months for the revenue coming in because of the way that the property tax bills are distributed?
Yes, so December financials will show that major income, and then usually May is when we show the next big. Mm-hmm.
I have a question. This is actually regarding page 58 and 59 in the board report. I know I'm going ahead, but since I've got you here, this is regarding a CLA lobbyist report to the state CLA and the governor's proposed budget, which had an additional $10 million in new funds proposed. Obviously, the budget won't be approved for several months, but I was kind of curious as to whether it be $5 or $10 million, whatever that dollar amount is. What is the exact process by which Altadena Library District can get a portion of that allocation?
Let's see. I'm just reading over it really quick. That's one of the reasons I was reading ahead. Let's see.
I can probably speak to it a little bit, Nicole.
Yeah, that would be great. My guess is either we apply for it or we're allocated a certain amount. I would have to look into it a little bit more.
Typically, those programs that come out of the state library are either run through one of the cooperatives, like we belong to SCLC. They might be in charge of one portion of that budget. It just depends. It's like they almost apply to the state library, and then they reach out to us and say, hey, there's these funds related to this. You can then apply to get those grant funds. So it's usually through a cooperative or straight through the state library or California Library Association. But once the budget's approved and they decide how it's being dispersed, then they do calls for libraries to apply for grant funds.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for that.
And we try to get as much of it as we can.
I'm sure of it.
I had a follow-up question to that same page, Nikki, and because I'm going to be talking about this is part of the government liaison thing later, and Rushmore, nailed exactly what I was kind of thinking about. Well, how do we get our hands on that money? I noticed that there was an allotment for outreach vehicles and bookmobiles, and here's my question, it also was for grants for underserved local libraries. So is there a category that libraries fit in that way? I mean, I'm presuming that we're not an underserved library, but I wonder if there's a definition attached to that.
It seems to me like when they do the call out for the grants, it'll spell out what that means, like who would qualify or not.
Okay.
And I do think there has been, like when we applied for the really big CARES grant, I think it was that Christopher or IMLS money that Christopher applied for. Part of why we didn't get it, I think, is because we didn't fall into that category of high need versus some of the other libraries and museums that did apply. But it's like every single one's different, and it just depends on if there's a need as well. I also don't believe in applying for grants that you don't really need when other systems could use the money for those things. So it's just like on a case-by-case basis. But we get a lot of our grant funding either through SCLC or straight through the state library.
Well, that last comment you made really gives me insight into how you think, and I like that. You're not going to go looking for money that somebody else could use, so thanks for that.
Well, and not only that, it's staff time. It's like if it's not money that's necessarily needed or a good use of staff time to develop some type of grant project that doesn't make sense. I've definitely seen that happen in other places I've worked where like they acquire a grant, it gets passed down to somebody that's got to carry it out. And there's a lot of paperwork and follow through after reporting and all of that back. So we try to be really mindful of making sure we go for the grants that the community will most benefit from.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have jumped a little bit ahead, but that's all right. So anything else for, no, it's fine. Anything else for Nicole while we have her with us? Okay, I think we're good. Thank you so much, Nicole. Appreciate it. That brings us to our committee reports. And just before we jump into these, a big thank you to all of our committee chairs for getting written reports into the board that met this month. That was very helpful to have those in the board package to review. Do we have a report? I don't have one in the package, but is there any report from the budget committee?
At this point, no. At the recommendation of Director Winslow, we held off on scheduling a budget committee pending final reconciliation of numbers for a mid-year adjustment to the budget for the fiscal year. Camila and I just received a communication from the team suggesting we meet as a committee probably the 11th or the 12th of February, and then thereafter bring the set of recommendations to the full board later that month. So that's kind of where we are at this point with the budget committee.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much. CFD committee, Terry, do you want to speak to that? Oh, you're muted.
I'll learn. We had a meeting on the 7th, I believe, of January, at 3, and we've adopted a meeting schedule of every second Wednesday at 3 o'clock. And we'll do that monthly for the first, multi-month period, and then see if we can scale it back or need to scale it back for lack of things happening. I doubt that's going to be the case, but we gave ourselves that wiggle room. We spent some time with that standing committee, me and Rushmore, talking about the fact that as a standing committee, we're subject to the Brown Act and all the other stuff that we both know, but we wanted to get down for the record. And then we started talking about how to structure things or what sort of projects we'd like to move forward on. And one thing that jumped out to me, and I think to Rushmore too, was that there's just the two of us on the committee. It would be nice to add another person, a third person at least, for voting purposes and so on. And we are looking to add now a member of the community. And that ball's already in play. We've got a website posting now for a committee, a citizen committee member that could help us with decisions going forward and also give some perspective from the community. That's something that we'd like to get a handle on, get our recommendations in order for the full board, because Katie, as you know, it needs to really go through you for an appointment. But we hope to get our screening done, as it were, and get a name or two or three in the pipeline so that we can take it to the full board at an upcoming meeting. I'm not sure which one it would be yet, probably the one on the 22nd, to get that person in play. That was maybe the biggest item I think that we talked about. You agree with that, Rushmore?
Yeah, I totally agree. You covered it pretty
We
well.
are going to draft an RFP, much like the one that's already been done for facilities, that will help us sort out the consultants and the other folks that we need to get the ball rolling on the generation of funds from bond sales and so on. We're told that the most important ones would be a bond counsel, of course, and then a registered municipal advisor and so on. So I think Nikki has got sort of a hierarchy of folks that need to be brought into the fold first, and we'll go to the board as we get these things established. And so there's a certain method to getting them hired. And we're all new in this, obviously, so I'm sure there's a lot we're going to learn in the coming weeks, but that's the way things, at least to me, look right now. Rushmore, you agree with that as well?
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I want to go back to the comment that the public comment speaker indicated about public sale versus a private placement, and the recommendation from the committee will be to maximize these resources on behalf of the Altadena taxpayer. So as we go through this process, if we feel that there's a better approach, better way to do this, we will certainly be flexible to bring forward what we think is the most sound and logical approach moving forward to benefit the constituents in the library. But everything else, as Terry indicated, is spot on.
And as I look at what Jason had put down in his report, you start to see where the bumpers are on the lane, basically. And one thing I heard, I don't know who to credit it to, was that as a general rule, the CFD committee should be responsible for raising capital through bond sales and so on for the projects, and the facilities committee should be responsible for spending it. And I think that kind of makes sense. So there's that bright line that we can instantly figure out where tasks go. For instance, we had capital project manager as one of the consultants in our meeting that we need to look at. Well, I don't think that's the case. And Jason's already got something in place, or your committee already has something in place for hiring that person. So, I thought it was a good first meeting and a lot left to do, but we got a good momentum, and we're in it for the long haul. So any questions from anybody?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of things, and I'll point out, because we're entering sort of a new phase in some of our committee work where we do have a lot of stuff that's, bumping up against scope one to the other. We also will have things that I'm sure, trustees will have thoughts on for various committee works. And, because of the Brown Act, this is our moment to discuss them. So for each of these committees, if it's a committee that you aren't on and you would like to ask some questions or volunteer some input, now is the time to do that, rather than in a one-on-one conversation. So this is sort of where in the meeting that happens, and I will just jump right in and say on the committee, on the citizen oversight appointment process, I had a couple of thoughts that I wanted to throw out there for the committee to consider. I think Mark sort of spoke to this a little bit earlier, and I've heard it as well from other folks, that it's for people who are not sort of in the weeds on the CFD process, it's a little tough to wrap your head around what the CFD committee does and what a non-trustee member of that committee would do. And I think the answer to that, is oversight, engagement in the process. But I also think that it may be the case that more interest starts to arise once this process unrolls a little bit. As it becomes more tangible, I think we're going to have more people interested in serving. So what I would encourage you to think about as a committee is to be flexible in the number of appointees you consider. So it may be that right now 1 or 2 or 3 is a good number. It may be in future that having additional members is helpful. I think that there's, in the sort of guidance that we have in our policies, there's no set number of individual members that you can have or not have. When we did our strategic planning committee, we had like a whole, I'm not going to remember how, like 10, 12, I don't remember how many. We had a whole bunch of people. And our sort of philosophy at that point was, if somebody is interested, let's have them participate. Now, obviously for the CFD, the process is a little different because it's not time limited. It's an ongoing it's an ongoing committee, but I would encourage you to think about maybe multiple points throughout the year where you would repeat a call for applicants, because I think that the scope will become more defined and you may have additional interest. I think it might be helpful to continue to solicit participation as that work continues.
What about the voting situation for you, Katie, when you had all those people involved? Were they all casting votes on projects and stuff?
Yeah, so you would have people as voting members, but remember that you're voting on stuff to basically bring to the board, right? So the CFD committee, just like any of our other committees, can't independently just do stuff. So you would vote, on whatever the recommendation is. So we would recommend, we've looked at all the responses to the RFP for whatever it is. And our recommendation as a committee is X, and the vote came out, 3 people thought this was a good idea, 2 people thought something else was a good idea. And then that discussion basically would come to the board. So in some ways, having more people participating may give rise to a more robust discussion. Ultimately, it will still come down to a board vote, on any action item. So it really just gives you sort of a larger pool of potential perspectives to consider. So there's no issue with sort of ceding decision making to unelected folks. It's just expanding the number of voices at the table, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's very helpful. I guess my feeling is that we have to be very careful in explaining what it is, what the duties are and so on, because there might be folks that look at the CFD committee and say, wow, I'd like to get on that because I can, help, choose what color the bathrooms are and things like that, and really get involved in the building process, whether you got to admit is a lot more exciting than bond sales and so on. So that's one thing I think we're going to have to manage, the expectations real well.
Right. And I think that's too where, understanding the work of the facilities committee and the community engagement process that will happen there versus the work of the CFD committee is helpful, right? So if somebody really is interested in design, in, what color the bathrooms are, that's somebody who, we would want to point towards that facilities working group, or I forget what we're calling it now, Jason, so please forgive me for getting that name wrong. But basically, we are going to have a ton of opportunities for people to participate. You guys just happen to be the first ones out of the gate. So.
Well, that's very, very helpful. I appreciate it. This CFD committee, to me, I might not be speaking for Rushmore, is one of those things where I'd rather put my toe in the water first a little bit and try to figure this out rather than jump in. So that was one element that had an appeal for me for keeping our committee, manageable, 2 or 3, 4 or 5 people at the most right now. But your idea of adding them on as we start to expand our duties makes a lot of sense. So thanks for that.
Yeah. Okay. So next we have anything else for the CFD committee? I didn't mean to cut that off if there was nothing. If somebody else had a.
Katie, I don't know if you saw, but Mark asked if he could make a comment in the chat. I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but I just.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm so sorry about this, Mark, but like the process for public comment needs to be the same for everybody. So I know you were on the call earlier, but just so that we have a consistent treatment of everybody who's making a public comment, could I ask you to just give Nikki's phone a call and we'll handle it like all the other ones. We're trying to be as consistent and fair as we possibly can on all these. It's just so hard on Zoom, and I appreciate that.
Just messaged him my cell phone number if he wants to.
Okay, perfect. Reset my 3-minute timer. We'll give them a minute or two here. Okay, well, we can come back certainly. So we'll definitely hear a call in comment a little bit later if Mark wants to do that. So that brings us to the Facilities Committee report, which begins on page 46 of your agenda. Jason.
So I'll try to be as brief as possible. The one thing I'll say is whatever we do going forward with the agenda, I think it makes perfect sense if we can try and keep for the CFD to report and then go into our committee, because there is, like you said, there's going to be this overlap and bumping up against each other, and it makes sense for them to kind of work together. So we held our first meeting as well. I want to thank Trustee Clark and our director, Nikki, for joining with that. A lot of overlap here for the first meeting. So we initially, again, just like Terry and his team, we had to first answer the question for all of us, what exactly are we doing versus everybody else, right? And I think Terry kind of nailed it for me. You know, one group is really responsible for getting the resources and the money together. The other group, I would like to say the more fun group, gets to spend it all, right? So lucky us. You know, we'll see at the end of it if I'm still saying the same thing. The other kind of comment I'll make before I go into the details of the meeting is I already have far more empathy for the people that do this professionally and deal with much larger projects than we do. You know, you think about things like Measure M in the county, or, you know, even the much debated bullet train. I can't even fathom being involved in something like this when I'm seeing how much work is going to have to go into our little $24 million project here. So, so first of all, the two things I want to highlight, I want to thank Trustee Clark for coming up with this idea. But we decided as a committee that it was important to have guiding principles that we will continue to use to keep us on track as we go through this process. And they're listed in the report, but I want to just kind of read those for folks who maybe didn't get to see the full agenda for tonight. So we have 4 guiding principles as a subcommittee, as an ad hoc committee. We are committed to using any taxpayer funds in the most cost-effective, responsible, and equitable way possible. We are committed to preserving the historic nature, unique architecture, and special character of our library buildings. We are committed to an open and transparent process and to actively seeking community input and feedback at every step. And we are committed to developing a long-range plan that takes into account the current needs of the community, as well as the realistic lifespan of our facilities, and has comprehensive repair, maintenance, and replacement planning built in. So those are our guiding principles. As to number 4, you know, you'll see that reflected in a later agenda item tonight, but the first piece of business that we decided was absolutely critical for us was to hire a project manager. I think it's become, and it was clear to us right away that there's just absolutely no way that, you know, us as a committee, or even all of, as amazing as they are, the staff of the library, we just don't have the capacity to take this on and manage everything ourselves, especially as we learn practically every day how much work this is going to take. So we can say a bit more about that when we get to that part of the agenda and that RFP, but that's the first order of business. And then the last thing I'll say, unless there's other questions or comments, and Trustee Clark mentioned this earlier, but we will be establishing, I think we're still settling on what we're going to call it, whether it's a roundtable or a citizens committee or whatnot, but we will be establishing some kind of standing committee to provide a more permanent and ongoing feedback in just the decision making we're going to have to do going forward. But you know, there's a lot of work that needs to be done before we're even close to making decisions on any kind of final designs and that kind of thing. But well before we get to that point, we will be reaching out to the community. So if there's anybody watching this live, or if you watch this later, you feel free to email myself or Director Winslow or Trustee Clark, so that we can just keep you in mind to reach out to you when we get to that point in the process. Anything to add, Katie?
Yeah, I think you've done a terrific job. That's absolutely right. Yeah, the idea behind, our community roundtable or whatever it is just that, if we can sort of establish a group of folks who are interested in participating in these conversations from the beginning, it will help us as we have things come up through the process. So not to say that that's the only group from whom we would seek feedback, but having an established group of folks, from all of our partner organizations, whether it's Town Council or Acona or Heritage or Historical or various community groups around town, people that we know have a vested interest in what we're doing as a library district, who have been involved in this process all the way along. We want to make sure that we're asking them to come to the table from the beginning, so that as we get to the point of, decisions needing to be made or choices that actually, we would want community input on, they're already there and they can help us get the word out to a broader group. Because, one thing that you brought up, Jason, during our meetings, which I thought was a really good point, is that yes, community outreach is critical, but sometimes we find that we offer a space for that and we get sort of the same voices giving input. And it's not that we don't want to hear from those voices, but we don't want to hear only from those voices. So we want to try to, with this phase of the process, really expand the reach of our community engagement, get a broader coalition of folks to the table, and just hear from a more inclusive set of voices. Certainly all the people that have been with us in this process all the way along, we really value that input, but we'd like to bring more people to the table. And again, I think as there start to be more specific things to react to, whether those are drawings or suggestions or, renderings, it's going to be easier for people to sort of wrap their heads around what the ask is. And so I'm sure that we will see, interest rise, and probably in parallel with the CFD committee as well, right? Those property tax statements will start to show up and people will go, hey, wait a minute, what's this all about? And that's great, because it gives us an opportunity to continue that conversation and have more people at the table.
And I think the follow-up to that, the other important piece of continued outreach to the community is, the previous iteration of the facilities committee that Trustee Andrews was part of, all of that feedback and input we got from the community at that time that went into the really rough outlines of design that we got from ARG, that was all pre-COVID, pre-pandemic.
Right.
And so I think it's going to be critical going forward that we continue that conversation about what does the community need and what do our libraries need to look like. Because I'm pretty confident there's going to be some new and creative ideas out there. Right. And also just making sure that we're, whatever design changes we make, that's also keeping in mind that, if we unfortunately have to deal with something like this again in the future, even if it's 30 or 40 years from now, how can we set ourselves up to be better prepared than we were this time as well? So. Yeah,
that's right. And the only other comment that I'll make, and I think it's reflected in our goals, or in our governing principles in the report, is just mindfulness of how important the sort of unique design of our main library is, and being aware of its very specific architecture, its very specific, kind of historic context, and making sure that at every stage of the game, whether it's a capital project manager or an architect or a contractor or anybody, that there's an understanding, a sensitivity, and a real embrace of that very particular design, so that we don't lose any of the really important historical character of that building. And similarly with our Bob Lucas branch, that people are, that anybody who's involved in that project understands its larger context of the community, how important it is to, remain consistent with that aesthetic and with that spirit. Okay, anything else on the facilities committee? Okay, then we will, oh, sorry.
No, just real quickly, it's
Yeah,
just a
please.
comment and suggestion, and this may already been well covered previously, but when it comes to accessibility, you may also want to look at, to the extent the amount of work that's going to be done, if it's going to be considered substantial or not, could trigger certain ADA requirement upgrades. So as you are going about looking to see, what the facility needs are, you might want to keep that in the back of your mind, because we could trigger some unintended consequences of having to potentially change the layout to accommodate for those newer standards, and they can be rather complex and convoluted between state and local requirements. So I just thought it out there as you're going through that process. Just think about that, and we may need to bring a consultant to make sure that we're not violating anything.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's a well taken point. It's also one of the reasons that in discussion, I think identifying a really qualified capital projects manager is critical, because, our expectation would be that they would also help flag similar, things that we could really get tripped up by were we not aware of them from the jump. So absolutely. Okay. Then let's move on to our redistricting committee. And Camila, I'll turn it over to you for your report.
Hello. So the redistricting committee, which consisted of myself, Katie, Nikki Winslow, of course, was there, and then Douglas Johnson of the NDC, which is the National Demographic Corporation. We met last week, and really it was a fairly brief meeting. We covered basically two things. We reviewed the scope in terms of where we've been, or the Altadena Library has been, and then talked about how to move forward. So as you all know, I'm sure there was an agreement to move forward with a more fair way to hold elections. And it was decided that there would be, it's very hard to hear me, Bridget says. Is that better?
Oh, that's better, Camila. Thank you.
Okay, I'll hold the microphone up. So where was I? So it was, there was a decision to move forward with creating districts versus an at-large election system. That was maybe about almost 2 years ago. So now it looks like we are waiting to move forward with that, but require data in order to make those decisions. And that data is based on census data. So we met with Doug, and he was able to update us in terms of, how the pandemic had impacted the census data collection and how it is impacting how we're going to move forward. Currently, we are on hold waiting for that data, which should be available hopefully by March, the end of March, and at the latest, worst case scenario, by August. And then we would be able to move forward with planning the different meetings that have to happen. Doug was awesome enough to give us a rough districting timeline for the Altadena Library District, which is included in the packet. And it basically includes all of the different meetings or workshops, town halls that have to happen, and an estimated date on when they could happen. Again, we are waiting for the census data, but he has high hopes that it should be available by the end of March, which means that we can then jumpstart the process and move forward. I think that that's pretty much it. I appreciate, this was my first committee meeting, so that was pretty fun. And I appreciate Nikki for helping me out with creating or updating and making the report so much more informative. Any questions or anything that I need to cover? Katie, you were there.
I think you did a great job. And I think most of it's outlined in the report, but yeah, definitely would love to answer any questions that anybody has.
Just a comment from me, and that is there was a lot of information in that report, and you did a great job of making it readable and understandable. So thanks very much. You put some work into that. Appreciate it.
Camila, this is Jason. Did you guys talk about, so completely understand the timeline delay because of the census data itself, but do we still think we'd be on track for this to be in place for the 2022 election?
Yes. it's my understanding that it's completely possible that it could be that we should be on track for it. Everything has to be completed by April of 2022. And it may be a bit tricky if the data is given to us on the later end. But if, provided that we have the data and can move forward, March through June, it's my understanding that it should be completely feasible.
Cool. Very cool. Thank you.
And thank you, Terry, for the feedback. Again, I have to thank Nikki for her assistance with that report.
All right. Anything else for Camila or the redistricting committee? Okay, very good. Then let's move into our liaison reports. We have, as you will all recall, 3 liaisons. Terry, you've got a report in the package this month, so I'll start with you as our governmental relations liaison, if you'd like to take it away.
Okay, great, thank you. I had several things forwarded to me from various folks about things that are happening at the government level. And the first thing, page number 51, is an opportunity for those that might be interested in any of the 5 of us for an appointment to the redevelopment oversight board. And what's happened is that there's a representative from special districts that goes to, for every supervisorial district, and 5, 2, and 4 happen to be open right now. So in District 5, I think there's about 29 or 30 special district type situations, and all of the governance officers of those agencies are eligible for nomination to this position, which is an appointed position that works with the County of Los Angeles. It sounds like a pretty good deal if you got the time and the inclination for it. So that's what's going on with this, and there are some resources there for you to call to get a little bit more about it for anybody that's interested in that sort of a thing. The nominations have already started. I think the start date was a week or so ago, and they close on February the 12th. So if you want to nominate someone, I presume with their approval, or nominate yourself, think about that. It might be an interesting thing to get into. So that's what that's all about. Any questions on that one? I'll try to get through these. I've got 3 or 4 of these to go through. The other one, the next one, is what Rushmore alluded to earlier, and that is that there's a proposed budget from the governor about library funding. And we went over some of the high points of that. $10 million is a lot of money, and a lot of these programs, or several of them apparently, will carry over. So it's not just for 1 year, it might be eligible for the next year and so on. So that was interesting. And I guess the idea on an email or a memo like that is to keep an eye on what's happening in Sacramento. This isn't going to be the final budget, obviously, but as soon as the final one is passed, I would like to follow up and find out how much it landed in there for libraries. And then we get to one more thing, and that's going to be page number 60 of your packet. If you look at it electronically, all of the links in there will work, and this is an opportunity for you to get a little extra education, if you're so inclined, regarding the Brown Act and county legislative process and so on. We're going to have a virtual workshop for new commissioners. And the way they've got it set up, it looks like we've got the code and we can get into this as well. So if you're interested in getting some more education to what you already have or have scheduled, this is a great opportunity for that. I've got 2 more things I'd like to latch onto this. The first thing is that we all know that we've got to do our ethics training, our sexual harassment training, and that gets us, tell me if I'm repeating myself too much, but that does give us sort of discount points or credit points toward our bill with SDMRA, which is our insurance company that handles our workers' comp and so on. So we've already got a couple of points, each of us, in the governance end of things, just for the ones that we're doing. But there are others on the website for CSDA, California Special District Association, that are labeled eligible for SDMRA credit points. And it's worth doing because it'll help us bring our bill down a little bit this next year. I think it usually gets paid in March, something like that. And then finally, Well, I was kind of poking around this commissioner workshop because I've always had this real interest in commissioners and what they do and so on. There's about 18 or so of them in Los Angeles County, and they're appointed. And so I got to poking around on the website, and there's a Historical Landmark and Records Commission for the County of Los Angeles. And Katie, this might ring a bell for you because you were involved, and I don't know how much of this is common knowledge and I'm just finding it out or what, but Katie was involved in a project to take a look at Altadena African American Historic Resources Survey that was done with sort of some funding for from LA County, from the Department of Planning. And I was knocked out. It's a 425-page report that wasn't finished, according to the video that I saw, about the African American experience in Altadena. And I thought I knew a lot about it, but it was astonishing. So I recommend all of you to get on the website for the Historical Landmark and Records Commission for the County of Los Angeles. And there's a big Altadena feature right there. And it will tell you things, it will teach you things about Altadena that are really, that you need to know, be sitting in your seats, in all of our seats, and especially about the African American community. So you can tell it got me kind of riled up. Definitely worth a read. And I don't know, Nikki, if you're still there, if we've got that in our collection somehow, but if we don't, we definitely should. So that's my report. Any questions?
I can speak a little bit to that report process, Terry. You're absolutely right that it is not, I would say, 100% complete in the sense that, like, I know it had very lofty goals and certainly accomplished a lot, but I know that we at the library partnered with our colleagues over at the Historical Society, as well as Town Council, and there was a lot of engagement. And basically, LA County had this grant to do this project, and it happened in, I want to say, like August of this past year, during the pandemic. So it was incredibly challenging for them to try to get hold of all the materials that they needed. But the group that was contracted to do the report, reached out and worked with a lot of the community partners, and it was not going to be available until, like, I think October or November. So I'm glad it's finally up and published. We saw a draft version of it back when the process was unfolding. And the conversation at that point with us and, with our friends at Historical was that we really hoped that it would form the starting point for a continuing conversation and investigation into the very specific and sort of relevant history of Altadena's Black community. So it is a great starting point, and I'm delighted that it's publicly available now. But I think there's probably a lot that the folks at Historical, and I'm sure some stuff that our Hidden Histories program is interested in continuing along those lines. Okay. Anything else for Terry as our governmental relations liaison? Okay. Do we have any reports from our support group liaisons, either Friends or Foundation? Raj, go ahead.
Yeah, I can go real quickly on the foundation.
Sure.
Obviously, Bridget covered it already this morning, earlier in the meeting, but just basically, they very, very hardworking group of people, and they welcomed me with open arms as they, had probably a little over 2.5 hour, at least 2.5 hour robust conversation about trying to, come up with potentially revising their vision and the mission, all in the support of the library district. So there's next meeting is this week as well, and based off that conversation, then I can share with you kind of the results of what they've come up with. So that's kind of short and sweet. It was my introductory to the foundation, their members, and it's kind of neat to be able to join them while they're planning. So I get to drink from a fire hydrant as to what they've been doing. So I'll have more to report at the next board meeting.
Okay, thanks. Camila, anything? Oh, go ahead.
I would just echo that. I'm sure that I'll have a lot more to report in the future. I was able to attend my first meeting last week, or I can't remember the exact date, on the Saturday, and I'm glad that I was available because it was really nice to be able to meet some of the members and join in on their conversation. They were very welcoming and a friendly group of people. So I'm looking forward to the experience. I have it on my calendar for the first Saturday of every month as a reoccurring appointment. So I will see you all there.
Terrific. Thanks very much. Okay, trustee reports. So this is the part of the show where if you've got anything that you would like to share that you have been up to over the course of the past month as a trustee, something that you think the community ought to know or you'd like to share with the rest of us or with the staff, then this is the part where you would do that. So I will open up the floor for any trustee reports at this time.
I can jump in with
Sure.
more of a PSA than a trustee report.
Okay, sure. We'll be flexible.
I think most everybody at this point knows that my full-time job, I work for a union of healthcare workers. We represent about 100,000 healthcare workers in California. We have now lost 37 of our members to COVID-19. And, I was personally a bit frustrated today to see the governor lifting the restrictions. So I really just wanted to give a PSA in case people are confused by that. Things are definitely not better yet. So please stay home as much as you can, socially distant. If you have to go out, whether it's the grocery store or anything like that, the kind of guiding wisdom at this point is to wear double masks, not just a single anymore, because of the new strains that are out. And again, I just really wanted to encourage people to continue to take this very, very seriously. We are going to be dealing with it for some time more, unfortunately.
Terry, go ahead. Thank you for that,
I
Jason.
will continue on that, and that is, it's a personal story. I got vaccinated over the weekend at Dodger Stadium because I'm age eligible for that. And despite all you've heard about the horror stories in the newspaper, I pulled right in on Saturday and got right up there, and they gave me my shot right on time, a couple of minutes early, and it was a pretty good experience. And I think that as they iron out the kinks that have been reported anyway on the way the vaccine is distributed and administered, that things are going to get a lot better. That's my impression. And I also think that the folks that have been saying that they don't want to get the vaccine for whatever, the anti-vaxxers, or they don't trust it or whatever yet, as these stories, my personal stories like this, start getting out there, and obviously I'm okay, my arm hurts a little bit, other than I'm fine, that you're going to get a much bigger turnout for the vaccine. So, and it was all in all, I wouldn't call it a pleasant experience, but it certainly wasn't as bad as people have been making out.
Thank you for that. Any other reports that anybody would like to share? I will report briefly on the support group leadership meeting that we had this past Saturday. So as some of you may know, it was a longstanding tradition, and I found out it used to be over dinner and cocktails, which sounds way more fun than Zoom, for on a consistent basis, either quarterly or more frequently, for the president of the Friends, the president of the foundation, the president of the board, and the district director to get together and just have a conversation about how everything was going to help sort of align goals and objectives. So Nikki and I had discussed this and decided that it was something we really wanted to bring back as a standing quarterly practice. So this was the first installment. Marnie and Bridget were good enough to join us, and we had, I think, a really productive discussion around what the library's operational goals are for the coming year and how we would ask for our support groups to help us achieve those. So it was really good. We had some great conversations around how to develop leadership and how to make sure that we are moving everything forward. And I know that there's going to be follow-up on all of those points, both with our board liaisons and with our support groups. So more on that to come, but I think a really productive first installment of that. And we'll be looking to have our next meeting probably late March, early April. So as a standing practice, really, really happy to revive it, and everybody wear a mask, get vaccinated, and maybe someday we can have these meetings over cocktails, because Marnie said that's what we need to do, and I agree with her. All right. How's everybody doing? It's been about an hour and 15 minutes. We've got a little bit of business left. Do we need a quick recess? We can keep going. You tell me. Keep it going. Keep it going. Yeah, that's right. I'm going to be able to make dinner before 8 o'clock tonight. Here we go. Maybe. Who knows? Not to stifle democracy. We can go as long as you want. It's totally fine. All right. Unfinished business. So this is an item that appears on page 61. And I will let Nikki talk about this if she has anything to add. But basically, the reason this is in your board package is we messed up the date. So we needed to bring it back with a corrected date. So the way it works is that district policy does salary increases on anniversary dates, not evaluation dates. So her adjusted salary should be retroactive to the date of the work anniversary, which is November 4th, rather than the evaluation date, which was November 23rd. So we wanted to bring that back for board approval. Any questions on that? Or Nikki, is there anything that you'd like to add on that?
No, I think that sums it up nicely.
Okay.
Was that an objection, Nikki? Or
No, no, not at all.
All right. So the motion here, I would ask for a motion to amend the director's employment agreement such that her increase in compensation be based on her anniversary date of November 4th, 2020. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
I'll move.
Okay, do I hear a second? Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion or conversation on this? All right, hearing none, we'll proceed to a roll call vote. Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Capel.
Aye.
Trustee Cervantes.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Aye.
And an aye vote from me. Okay, so that's done. Thanks, everybody. Sorry about that. New business. We are looking now at the 2020 operational plan review, which begins on page 62 of your board package. And for this one, I will ask Nikki to come and speak with us a little bit about it.
Yes, for sure. Thank you, Katie. And going back to the liaison reports, I do want to give a shout out to Rushmore and Camila for at the last minute making those, because I didn't think to invite them well ahead of time like I should have. So thanks to both of them for being present. That was really great. Okay, so operational plan 2020. So basically a year ago, we presented the operational plan with all of the things that we wanted to achieve, which, as you know, I have a very ambitious staff. And then we came back, I think in August, with an update. Many of the things that we did set as goals were either had to be modified or delayed basically because of being closed due to the pandemic. But I did put together a list of some of the big things I think that we accomplished that I wanted to mention as part of the operational plan. Number one, lots of staff training and professional development this year. That was one of the opportunities of working from home, is identifying, things that you feel like you could learn and grow in, and finding webinars and other training. And that included 2 professional development days, which I think were great bonding experiences as well as very educational for the staff. We had many updated or newly created policies this past year, including all of the personnel policies, which was a huge feat. Thank you to Nicole for all of her help with that. We developed a service animal policy. We developed a teleworking policy, which thank goodness we did. Ironically, I said, oh my God, we'll never use this. And then boom, a month later, we were all teleworking and more. We completed a classification and compensation study during a pandemic and integrated all of the recommendations. So getting all the staff in the pay scale that they really should be in and are being compensated competitively with other systems our size. We launched the Library of Things, largely in response to the fact that we knew people needed laptops and mobile hotspots and other things. So we did that, as well as sewing machines, musical instrument kits, virtual reality, and more. And that's just going to continue to grow. There's a lot of people with some really great ideas, including tools and other things. Thanks to Jason, he's connecting with someone in the community as well. We completed the architectural and design review, which helped inform the whole Measure Z campaign and process to renovate our buildings. Collection, so our materials, we did collection, analysis, and maintenance, including performing diversity audits throughout the buildings on all of our collections. That's not completed, but it did start the whole process of looking at our collection from that standpoint. Growing our partnerships and relationships, which honestly to me has been the biggest silver lining of pandemic, is that there were just organizations in the community that needed our help. So especially through our Altadena Connections website launch. And that also included hosting many events, programs, and meetings for our partners as they transitioned into the virtual world. You know, it took several of our partners, 5 or 6 months to figure out how to do Zoom meetings and things like that. So kudos to Chloe for all of the times that she helped host meetings for our community partners. We got a massive $345,000 grant to upgrade our IT infrastructure to Wi-Fi 6, which is actually happening right now. Another silver lining in that, from what I understand, there's like wires coming out from the ceiling all over the place. So it's a good time to be upgrading while everybody's at home. We had our first ever One City, One Book initiative called Altadena. Unfortunately, most of the programming around that didn't happen, but we did get it launched, and we look forward to growing that program moving forward. We also installed the demonstration garden at Bob Lucas through grant funding, also using community voices and expertise, as well as lots of local volunteers on this outdoor project. I do think it's a model for community building projects moving forward. So as you can see at the end of the report, another huge kudos to Chloe for her compilation skills. She's really masterful at putting these together. There were goals we weren't able to accomplish due to COVID, or those that we had to modify as a result. Many of those made their way onto operational plan 2021. So that's just like a overarching view of it all. But again, like, I'm amazed at how much was able to be accomplished as we were in and out of the building last year.
Very good. Thank you. It's a pretty exciting list. Any questions or observations from trustees for the director? Terry, go ahead, please.
Just a great job. I was just amazed at how much stuff was done. So good work to you and your staff, Nikki.
Jason.
One question and then a comment. It's always in the back of my head, you and your team have so much going on that even if the doors were open, there's no way that the community would have any idea of how much. So just a question as to kind of like our marketing or PR strategy going forward, just to make sure that despite the pandemic, that the community is aware of how much we've accomplished and continue to accomplish. I'm sure Chloe's got that going on in her head, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's why we try to present and connect with as many partner organizations. Like, we do a really robust presentation for the town council every month to, point out not only what's happening, but also what's coming and things like that. But again, like, I look forward to in-person meetings so we can be attending, Chamber and Rotary and all of the various groups to make sure that the word gets out. But again, I think that the Little Free Libraries, creating this network of people that we can be spreading the word and, identifying groups in the community that maybe we aren't already in communication with, to continue to build up awareness. Because I've probably said it to the board before, since I started working in libraries, 20 years ago, that's always been our greatest challenge, is people have no idea what we do and what we have to offer. So, but I do think in Altadena, everybody really loves the library, which we saw through the Measure Z efforts. So at least we are in the forefront of people's minds, which is wonderful. Honestly, we're in a good position, but we can definitely grow.
And that kind of goes, I guess, to my comment. Kind of the themes I saw under the section of the report that kind of talks about the goals going into this year. And under the modified or in progress, right? So some of the thoughts in there about how do we create a more permanent way to get community input. So kind of like, it seems to me in my head, I'm thinking about, this kind of community roundtable we're looking at creating for the ad hoc facilities report. Sounds like you guys are thinking about something like that, but for the libraries as a whole, which is really great. And then it was really great to see, some of the goals that Natalia specifically is looking at as the volunteer coordinator, and really looking at ways and opportunities to expand that, and not only into more areas, but just more people volunteering overall. So I'm really excited to see where those take us this year.
Yeah, and I think especially as it, like her and Chloe have worked closely together to build it into our outreach and partnership database. So that, like, let's say we have volunteers that want to do something that's not necessarily library related, but we can connect them to partner groups, based on whatever their passion is. That's where we want to find like the places where these things kind of mesh together and connecting people throughout the community.
I think that's really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other discussion on this? All right, thank you very much. That brings us to page 69 of your board package, which is an amendment to the 2020-2021 master calendar. So you'll see that basically we're updating the master calendar to reflect reality. So the old version had a bunch of stuff that was in the wrong place and in the wrong month. So this reflects our current pacing. It also changes a little bit because we, as you'll recall, have our budget on a fiscal year, but our operational plan is on a calendar year. So those two are a little bit different. So we've amended that as well. Any questions or it's pretty self-explanatory, but any questions or comments or discussion on this item? Okay. And we revisit this every so often in case there are things like the board retreat, for example, now is going to be a standing feature in January. So if there are things that crop up throughout the year where it seems like it would be helpful to include those in our annual planning process, we can certainly do that. So do I hear a motion to approve the amended master calendar?
I move that we approve it.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Camila will second.
All right, thank you very much. So motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, let's vote on this, guys. So Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Capel.
Aye.
Trustee Cervantes.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Aye.
And I vote for me. Perfect. Thanks very much, guys. And this is a helpful one to refer to just as you're thinking about what we're doing in the coming months, suggesting future agenda items. Always good to take a look and see what we've got coming at us. All right. Page 72 represents an update to our borrowing policy. Nikki, do you want to speak a little bit about these updates?
Yes,
Thank you.
So as you can see, our borrowing policy was last updated in 2017. Victor, who is our new assistant director, as you all know, has been working closely with Mi-Ling, our youth and family services manager, and Diana, the branch manager over at Bob Lucas, to update like basically all of our library operations policies. This was one of the first ones that they tackled. There's not like huge changes, but some of them include a definition of acceptable forms of identification, adding expiration dates to library cards with like the caveat that they don't expire unless they're not being used. Like we don't want to expire cards of active users, but this way, if after a certain amount of time people aren't using their accounts, we can purge them and keep an accurate database. Introducing the curiosity card, the digital card, as well as creating a new good neighbor status, which is basically a person establishes a good checkout record, which then qualifies them to check out from Library of Things. So those are the highlights, but I'm happy to answer any other questions. Hopefully I can answer them that you might have about this updated policy.
I'm just glad you explained the expiration of the card because I don't mind to expire. So I got it now. Thanks.
Mhm. Yeah, when I first saw that, I was like, I don't want to expire cards. And they were like, oh, only if they're not being used. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
Well, looks pretty clear to me.
Yeah, I particularly appreciate having an option, a card option for folks without address verification. I think that's so important, and I'm really happy to see that in there. One thing that I did want to ask is you will know this better than me, but I think for LA County, you can apply online for their digital card and then show up and have it converted into an actual card. Do we envision a process like that, or would you like open a new card? Do you know what I mean? Like if I've been borrowing online and then returning stuff, would that, for example, qualify me for good neighbor status if I come in and get a real card?
Right. So the digital card option, which is on page 74,
yeah,
it expires either when it's not being used or when they come in and get a physical card.
Okay, so they're mutually exclusive. So you can't have a digital card and it's one or the other. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
I don't think I really understood that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Any other questions on this item? Our action tonight is going to be approving the updated borrowing policy. So if there's no further discussion, then I would ask for a motion to approve.
I will move.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any further comments, discussion on this? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Trustee Andrews. Sorry, Terry, just for the record, I gotta have you unmute.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought it was good. Aye.
Thanks. Trustee Capel.
Aye.
Trustee Cervantes.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Aye.
And an aye vote from me as well. So that's approved. Thanks so much for this updated policy. That's great. All right, next we have a request for an approval for the purchase of the van for our mobile library unit. It's exciting. Obviously a lot of information here in the report, but Nikki, do you want to speak briefly to this item?
Yeah, absolutely. So, basically last summer we decided that in the current climate with COVID and who knows when we're going to have in-person services, we wanted to move forward with trying to come up with some type of mobile library unit. It dovetailed nicely with the planning of Taste of Dena, which, they were looking for what are we fundraising around? And I do think having that tangible van, this mobile unit out, like to be able to do outreach and provide services across the town really drove a lot of the fundraising I believe they fundraised almost as much just through the virtual capacity as they did in person the year before. So thankfully, they were able to give us $20,000 towards the purchase of the van. We were able to make some other adjustments, which you see in the report, to cover the rest of it, but we're just looking to the board now to get your authorization to spend up to $40,000. Christopher, Chloe, and Jonathan put this together. They did the research on the different types of vehicles, and as you can see from the report, what they're recommending in terms of a Ford Transit van being the option that we're going to probably go with. So I'm happy to answer any other questions. Jonathan and Christopher are on here too, if you have questions for them.
Do we have any idea what the build out cost? Because I'm assuming the 40,000 is just to buy an empty van, right? So do we have any idea what build out cost is and what our funding for that might be?
Christopher, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. There'll be some capital expenditures for electronics that could be in the neighborhood of $1,500 to $2,000. There's a grant out there right now that still waiting for results on, and if we don't get that and we choose to have laptops out there, it could increase that number upwards of 12 to 15,000 for having a lot more electronics. As far as like shelving, preliminary estimates for that were in the $6,000 range for the estimates we did through the IMLS grant that we didn't get. And wrapping the van could be around 5,000 too, is what Chloe estimates. Of course, with the wrap, there could be some kind of like contest, or there could be, you know, some possibility of having like partnerships in the community. Yeah. So like grand total, it could roughly be about 25,000. And I think that like what, you know, we'll end up doing is baking those costs into our departmental budgets, and they're capital expenditures, so they won't be reoccurring. Reoccurring costs, I think Chloe's drafted something up. It's in there already. So yeah.
And it is something at the board retreat, the foundation board retreat this Wednesday, that we put in an ask this year for the funding, some of the funding to help cover the build out.
Great. I mean, this is just incredibly exciting.
I
So
know.
I can't wait to see this thing cruising around town.
Us too.
I'm curious, is this project based on something that has been done in the past, like from another library, or modeling it after that? Or is this, I've never seen a traveling library so far in my life. So I'm just curious where the idea came from and what the, you know, because that will also help in terms of not having to reinvent the wheel with respect to the, you know, the build outs and the things that need to happen to the van after you get it. And I also asked that question because based on this, it looks like, you know, you all have a great idea in terms of what kind of van that you want to use. Is that the same type that other projects have used in terms of what they would recommend as well? Those were several questions.
Yeah, Christopher and Jonathan, can you speak to that at all? I know that the team of them did some research on other vans, and that's, I think, how they put together the ongoing costs to maintain it in terms of staffing and all of the other things.
Yeah. So we have joined into several webinars that had breakout sessions with libraries from around the United States. And in that same webinar series, they showcase the different types of vans, going all the way from just pulling a small trailer all the way up to like a school bus size van. And companies that actually create these prefabricated mobile libraries. So this is something that's like pretty vast. It's definitely not reinventing the wheel. There's great precedence for this. And the way we're doing it isn't like the cheapest way, but it's pretty close to the cheapest way. And it's very appropriate for our community size. So I would say that, you know, tier 0 being pulling a small trailer, we're in the tier 1 zone in terms of like what we're doing. And with you know, the expertise of our staff, Jonathan's expertise, mine, and Chloe's outstanding marketing abilities, that it'll be very easy for us to engineer the components piecemeal.
Yeah, and to Nicole's point in the chat, we're also consulting with Monrovia Public Library. They have a Monrovia Reads bookmobile as part of their literacy program. And also to Marnie's point in the chat, there was a mobile unit launched, I think it was in 2003. That was the most recent effort, but that there was also a traveling library in Altadena in the 80s and 90s. So, I mean, it's definitely not a new concept, but I do think the way we're going to deliver services will be different in terms of like the technology, equipment, ability to do pop-up programming. It's not just going to be this like vehicle filled with books. I mean, we see a lot of other capacities around this mobile library service. And it's very timely right now with masks and who knows what things are going to be like for a long time right now.
I think it's also timely just for me. I just read the book, The Book Woman of Troublesome Creek, I think it was called, where they took the books around on pack horses and mules up mountains and things like that. So this is definitely far better and, like you all said, pretty exciting.
Go ahead, Rush.
Yeah, Nikki, beyond the purchase of the vehicle, what kind of operational needs do you have ongoing, or just to get the vehicle up and out, delivering or being out in the community?
Well, like Christopher had mentioned, we're going to install shelves. We're going to install like
Right.
housing for technology. Like we would like to have laptops and hotspots and other things that we can use out in the community. We're also looking at the vehicle itself being a mobile hotspot because we'd really like to put this thing into use as much as possible. And who knows, maybe that is building in a schedule of like it gets parked here on specific days or times so that people know that there's Wi-Fi available in maybe areas of Altadena that don't have as much Wi-Fi access. Beyond that, it's going to be, purchasing collections and purchasing the equipment to fill it. As Christopher mentioned, wrapping it, doing marketing and promotion around it. And then after that, like ongoing maintenance cost, I think is looking at staffing, do we need to hire an additional person that really focuses on the outreach efforts and staffing it? I don't know. We're going to have to look at staffing, when we get to that point, as well as insurance, gas, repair and maintenance, so that's where we're working kind of closely with the foundation because I do think it's something that they're really supportive of. And if we can like continue working with them to make sure that there's this consistent funding around it, that's kind of what we're looking at right now.
Right.
I heard you.
And
Oh.
sorry, just a quick follow-up. Just and Nikki and I also spoke about this in one of our check-ins. And now that we'll have this vehicle, we will be better positioned as far as grant writing opportunities, because philanthropic organizations, now that they actually know there's a vehicle, they'd be more apt to probably give resources to this effort.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it's difficult to get funding for a vehicle, but once you have it, it's more about like supporting this new service model and effort.
All right, just so everybody can go once, we'll go Terry, and then Camille will come back to you.
A question and a comment. The comment is the implementation being coming up here right at the beginning of the year, it's like April, that really dovetails nicely into what we're trying to do with the CFD and with our construction too, because it'll be sort of an emissary out there in the community, and people in the back of the mind will associate with sort of the expansion of the library. But my question is, what about, do you have a plan for keeping it safe at night? Anywhere to park it or anything like that?
Christopher or Jonathan, do you want to speak to that?
Well, we will make sure that it is parked safely inside the parking lot area, visible. Also, it is a great marketing tool, people just seeing it there, and just even when we have to park it outside in certain areas, people will see. It'll be a great marketing tool for the library to see that we have that down there. But we will make sure that it's perfectly safe. We will put it in a camera view where we have our camera spotted at, so that way we can make sure that it's watched at all times.
And I've got an old LoJack I can sell really cheap too if you need that, Jonathan.
Yeah, there's several tools that we have attached to that. Probably we will look into an alarm system with that, but we will make sure that everything is locked well. I know there's certain type of locking systems that I see that maintenance companies put on there that locks the equipment and the vehicle more than necessary, but we'll make sure that it's well taken.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that too. This van will be like its hotspot will be live, and it'll be sipping energy. It doesn't use a whole lot, but it will have wireless cameras that are magnetically attached to it, and so it'll have 4 points of view around the van at all times, and they'll be hooking back into that Wi-Fi. Yeah.
Okay, Camila.
I just had a quick question. I heard you all say wrapping. What are you saying like wrapping a gift? Like, what do you mean by wrapping the van?
So it's like, you know, when you've seen vehicles in the community that like have a business's logo around them.
Okay.
Yeah. So we will wrap it with our logo and like the foundation
Got it.
and all that. Mhm.
Okay. Got it. That makes sense.
Mhm.
All right, I've got two questions, which I will ask in declining order of seriousness. My more serious question is, how does, and maybe this is a question for a later time, but do we know how our mobile unit will impact any of our risk management questions or our insurance with SDRMA? So does that kind of get wrapped into some of our existing insurance coverage, or do we have to go outside for that? Do we know anything about kind of how that works, or anything about how our staff and sort of qualified operators, how that will impact some of our insurance rates?
Nicole, can you speak to that or no?
I can. I actually just recently reached out to SDRMA about that now that we're ready to get the ball rolling. And unfortunately, it is not covered. It would be additional coverage. I haven't gotten a quote on it just yet. And as far as drivers are concerned, what we can do is participate in a program that SDRMA offers. It's called an EPN program, or an employee pull notice program, that would alert us to any changes of status in license for any drivers as far as accidents or traffic related crime or anything like that. So that is an additional option for us. If we're not interested in that, we don't actually need to notify them of any drivers. We just need to follow state law and have everybody with a valid driver's license. But those are our options. We'll add coverage for the van, and then we can participate in that optional program.
Okay, good. That's great to know. And then my less serious question is it going to play a song like the ice cream truck? Because I just feel like if the library van is coming like down your street, it should definitely play a song, right? Like that seems awesome.
Christopher?
Yeah.
I was
Chloe-
also envisioning that.
Yeah, Chloe is adamant that it plays a song from what I last talked to her.
Great, awesome.
I'll let her sort it out, and then I'll plug the equipment in, and it'll be doing its thing.
Fantastic.
Maybe it can play Funky Altadena. Have you seen that on YouTube?
That's right. Yeah, or whoever our most recent winner of the, what are the thing? Oh, I'm gonna get it wrong, but you guys know the thing where like people write songs about Altadena, and then we have a Heritage sponsors it every so often. Betsy played at it last time. I can't remember the name of but Altadena, whatever the winning, or the most popular song is, play that. Awesome. Okay. Well, now that it's going to play a song, you've got a yes vote from me. That was up in the air, but perfect. Any other questions for anybody from the team on this? This is exciting. It's delightful that we can also do this with zero fiscal impact. That's amazing. And a huge thank you to the foundation for making that possible. All right, then here we go. I would ask for a motion to approve the purchase of our mobile library unit van.
I am honored to approve that motion.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to a roll call vote. Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Capel.
Aye.
Trustee Cervantes.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Aye.
And an aye vote for me. That's awesome, guys. What an exciting time. Congratulations. It's a big one. All right. We've got one more item of new business, which is a request for approval of an RFP for capital project management. We covered this a little bit in the facilities report, but I will ask Nikki and Jason if there's anything that they'd like to add at this time regarding the specific RFP.
Nikki, did you want to add anything?
I mean, I will just say that this RFP was built off of me looking at many different RFPs around similar hiring in terms of a capital project manager. I also want to give kudos to someone I used to work with in Glendale. He's an assistant director of public works. He really spent a lot of time reviewing it and adding suggestions for language that we should add. And then Jason helped me build that language in. So I feel pretty good that it's very comprehensive. one of the things that I added that I didn't see in other places was the need for this project manager to work with the community engagement part, like at the very beginning, to like build in community feedback and meetings and hearings, just to make sure that our design is informed by that information. So that's all I would add.
Yeah, I would say Nikki's connections to the outside world were extremely helpful because I don't think any of us knew where to really start on this one. And I think in addition to the community outreach piece, I think the very intentional decision to build in some work so that we'll have a work product that will help us set up for long-term budgetary planning for ongoing facilities needs and the lifespans of the different things that we're going to replace and all of that. So that's going to be very helpful as well. And you know, I spoke earlier, but, you know, we're learning an awful lot about how much we don't know. And, you know, we began our first committee meeting kind of like, what do we need to do first? And, you know, I think Terry can jump in too, but when we were going through all this stuff with ARG, it seemed so simple back then. It's like, yeah, you know, Measure Z will pass and we'll just hire a design build firm and they'll come in and build our stuff and hey, we know we're good to go. And clearly it is far more than that. And you know, so from the committee's perspective, there's really no way for us to get this done with the oversight, frankly, that the community deserves as well, without having an overall project manager. And so that we view this, the committee views this as frankly the critical first step into moving forward with implementing Measure Z.
My comment on that, Jason, would be back in the good old days, we never thought this would happen. You gotta be careful. You gotta be careful what you wish for, basically.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions on the RFP or any items that anybody would like to speak to on this? So just a reminder that what we'd be voting on tonight is an approval of this RFP. So that would be, if approved, it would post tomorrow. And then it would follow the schedule that you would see as outlined on page, excuse me, I'm sorry, it's at the top of the page 82. So a series of question and answer sessions, interviews. Those interviews would be conducted by the facilities committee along with the director and any other staff that she deems appropriate. And then any final consultant selection, what would happen is the same as with all our other RFP processes. The committee will do an initial review, sort of shortlist what they believe to be the strongest candidates, and then bring a final recommendation to the board. So you guys will recall a similar process that we've gone through with other consultant selection in the past. So the final decision, as always, lies with the board, but basically this approves the RFP process and the advanced work that would need to happen in order for that to come back to us, hopefully for our March meeting.
And I'll just add to that, Katie, like you said, it will open tomorrow. The deadline to submit would be March 1st. And another thing, Nicole and I are researching like a third-party vendor to promote the RFPs that we're going to have moving forward. I was given one or two that we're looking at, but we definitely want to get this out in front of as many eyes as we can. So it's going to be beyond just on our website. We're also going to have it through another a vendor that promotes RFPs to people that are looking for them.
Great. Okay, so if there's no further discussion or any other questions, then I would ask for a motion to approve the RFP for capital project management.
I will move.
Do I hear a second?
I will second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion or debate on this item? Hearing none, we'll proceed to a roll call vote. Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Capel.
Aye.
Trustee Cervantes.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Aye.
And an aye vote from me. So that is approved and it can go up tomorrow. Thank you so much. All right, so that is all of our new business. This brings us into our last couple of sections here. So we've added this month, as you'll note, an item or a section of our agenda for governance. And this is really a continuation of the conversation that we started at the board retreat. So at the board retreat, we asked all the trustees to go ahead and complete a board evaluation that was included in the board handbook. And for anybody watching at home or anybody who'd like to do their own board evaluation, you can download a copy of the entire board handbook on our altadenalibrary.org site at our board materials. Natalia has very helpfully condensed all of our previous components into one updated and complete PDF, so you can download that. So at this time, I'd just like to ask, has everybody had a chance to actually complete that board evaluation? Okay, fantastic. So my question for you is this. Do you feel like that format is a helpful one going forward? Because I think, as we talked about at the board retreat, we do need to have some kind of consistent evaluative process. This is a first swing at it. It's a format that we've adapted from some of our CSDA contacts. So it's one option. It's not necessarily the only option, but I wanted to get your feedback now that you've had a chance to complete it, as to what your thoughts are on using that as a formal evaluation tool going forward.
And
I
you said
personally
something,
like it. I think
something
it's
that goes every year. This gets done. Is that what you said?
Sorry, I heard both of you talk at the same time. Terry, I heard your question, which is it the idea that we would do this every year? Yes, that's the idea, that, at a board retreat every January, we would conduct a formal board evaluation in the same way that the director is formally evaluated. This year was more of an informal process, so we could take a look at the format and try it out. But yeah, that's the idea, that we would approve and adopt some sort of formal evaluation, and then bring it back in a yearly fashion. Sorry, Jason, you started to say something.
No, I like the format. I think it's pretty comprehensive, and I like the kind of design of it as well. If we were going to do anything to change it, I would just say like maybe some brainstorming on how to maybe add some more specifics around evaluating our community outreach piece of our work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. And I would also think that it would be helpful to maybe add some sort of library specific stuff, or maybe, unique to our particular special district, CFD, like we've got some particular characteristics that are not the same as, say a water district or a sewage district or a vector control district. So I think having a little bit of library specific content in there would be helpful as well. Okay, so then sorry, go ahead, Camila.
No, I was just going to say I agree with that. Initially, my thought was that it wasn't very specific and clear, but then just even now looking back at some of the questions, they are pretty specific, but not necessarily to Altadena and the Altadena Library District. So I definitely agree with that, to make it more individualized or add some individualized questions or, assessment pieces that are specific to, our, like you said, what we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm. So then this is not an action item, this is just a little bit of a discussion. So what I would like to do then is take the opportunity to do a little bit of tweaking on this. And I will, of course, confer with the director on that process and get some of her input as well. I would also like to add an explanation on the scoring matrix, so it makes some kind of sense, because otherwise it's like, did you get a high score? Did you get a low score? What does that mean? We talked about it in real life, but that was confusing, I think.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that the scoring page and the assessing governing board effectiveness it's still not very clear to me. It's really confusing, and and then what I think it would be helpful too, like we can pull out what these things mean, like a supportive framework, conflict management process, but I think that a little bit more specificity there would be helpful as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think that's absolutely right. So what I will do then, and I won't promise to have this done for February, but definitely at a future meeting, I will bring back an adapted version of this evaluation, and we can look at it again. And at some point, this year, we will formally adopt board evaluation format, and then we can use that going forward. Does that work for everybody? Okay. Okay. I'm writing down what you said, Camille. I think that's very helpful. Okay. All right. And then our second piece in this governance bit was, again, at our board retreat, we talked a little bit about some goal setting, and I asked that all of us come back to this meeting with some specific goals. And so this is the point in the meeting where I'd like to take an opportunity for us to share those goals. I think it's important that we say publicly what we're committing to doing, and we have sort of an on the record discussion about that. I think all of us, put in a lot of time and energy in reviewing all of the reporting and the hard work that the staff brings to us every month, and we're very grateful for that. And I think it's helpful for us to say what we're planning to bring to the table for this year as well. So at this time, I'd like to open it up and let anybody share what their individual goals as a trustee are. Rush, go ahead.
Very short and sweet. I mean, consistent with my assignment as running the budget committee and being on the CFD committee, and with Z, my goals are to create a level of comfort and transparency where the taxpayers of Altadena feel comfortable that this board and the staff of Altadena are running an efficient and effective organization. And continuing to seek input from the community to ensure that we are not only spending the money wisely, but also advancing the programs to meet their needs.
Terrific. Thank you for that. Who else? We're all going to go, so you can go in whatever order you want.
I think that one of the things that I again took from this evaluation was I tried to frame or think about goals in terms of the categories that we had. And so I focused on teamwork, and because I'm a relationship person, that's what I do. I would like to create or find ways or engage in, conversations that build relationships, not only with our the library staff, with you all, especially since, we've talked about this a little bit in the retreat. We're on Zoom. No one really knows each other except those of you who have worked together before. So because I deal a lot in relationships, that's really important to me to actually, looking at some of the questions that were around teamwork. I think you can't go wrong in strengthening the relationships between, us. As well as the library staff. So I would like to put that out there. And then I looked at a clear sense of purpose also. And this felt a little bit, had a little scope creep for me, but I just, it reminded me of Nikki's conversation when we talked about how she made the telework policy, not thinking that we would ever, need it. And then boom, we needed it. So I want to try and commit to basically be proactive in innovation in terms of like always thinking about how to sustain the library, especially, right now where things are moving in very much a tech way. We're checking out books online and things like that, and thinking about it, bigger than books, in terms of what the library is. And I guess in a nutshell, just be proactive in innovation when it comes to the sustaining of the library. If that makes sense.
It does. Thank you. Thank you for that. Who else?
I can jump in.
Go for it.
It's kind of two areas for me, and I've spoken about this a lot over the last 2 years, but I think as much as possible right now, hopefully by the end of the year it'll be different, but having a presence at more community events or community organization meetings as a trustee representing the board, just again to continue that community engagement, community outreach. So I'd like to try and identify at least 3 throughout the year to participate in. And then I think Terry is extremely good at this. I'm absolutely horrendous, but spending more time on the CSDA website and really taking advantage of those resources. So my goal is to take advantage of at least 6 of either the webinars or the different training and education opportunities that are on the CSDA website this year as well.
That's great. Thank you. Terry, go ahead.
Everybody's got such interesting things to say. It's like I want to change my goals after listening to everybody. Some of you have touched on the same thing that I've been feeling, and that is to, and I think Jason's really good at this, engaging with the community more, at least in a more productive or substantial way. And I think that as our 2 committees start getting some steam, we'll have a lot of opportunity to do that. So that's an area I'd like to concentrate on. And the other one would be just other, maybe not even involving the library as much, but getting a different perspective on other things that are happening out there in the community. One thing that really struck me, and you could tell I was animated talking about it, was that idea that the research project wasn't done about African Americans in Altadena. And there was a lot on that same website about buildings and historical preservation and records and things like that. A lot of work to be done. And Altadena, I did not realize is such a rich historical vault that way. So I'm going to look for ways that maybe I can get involved with that as well, which aren't necessarily library related, but it's a goal I have.
Thank you for that. That's very helpful. So I've got 2 goals that are sort of related. One is to continue to try to find existing or new partnerships that I can bring to the table for the library. And I think that, some of those have immediate relevance where it's clear that there's like a synergy and it makes sense. And sometimes it's not clear what the long-term alignment might be, but my goal is just to try to think through my own Rolodex, through organizations that I'm involved with, through connections that I make, and think about like, how can I connect the library? Does this make sense? And I'm finding more and more that the answer is almost always yes. And if there's somebody that I can introduce to, whether it's, of course, our director or to one of our support organizations, and just help build those connections, I think that's a really important goal for me. So I'm keeping a very active eye out for who might fall into that category. And then my second goal is something that really has come on my radar in recent years and was just really reaffirmed to me during our leadership conversation with our support organizations. And that's how absolutely critical it is to be thinking right now about how to develop future leadership, both for our board of trustees, but also for our support organization. So who are the people, 2, 3, 5 years from now who are going to be running for office for the board, who are going to be stepping up to lead the Friends, who are going to be stepping up to lead the foundation, and how can I help, develop some of those opportunities? I think that sometimes there can be some gatekeeping, there can be some real obstacles to participation. So one of the things I want to do is think with all of you all, but also with our support organizations about how we can help bring more people to this table and start to really build a bench, of folks who are involved and interested and engaged, so that we have, a set of people who are invested in the library, know what's going on, are informed and educated and ready to go, and who can start to step into those leadership positions. I'm especially thinking about, the longevity of our CFD, and how important it's going to be to make sure that we have, a continual growth of investment, both on the money side, but also on the people side. So that's a big one for me. Well, thank you to all of you for sharing your goals. I think it's so helpful to know kind of what everybody's thinking about. And sometimes people ask me, what do I say in a trustee report? Well, let us know how you're getting along. Let us know what you did. If you've set out some specific things that you're focusing on, then you can let us know what you're up to. And certainly those can be oral reports, but it's always nice to have it in paper as well. And we'll keep coming back to you, every month in your trustee reports, and you'll see governance recurring as an item on our agenda as we continue to think together about ways that we can just be more effective and work more effectively as a board. So that brings us to section 9, announcements and planning. I'm not aware of any correspondence this month in the board package. I'm just scrolling to the end in case I missed something. No, I'm not aware of any correspondence this month. So this is the time when, if you have an agenda item that you'd like to propose for a future agenda, you're welcome to do that now. If there's something you'd like to see us talk about in February or at a future board meeting, you can let me know now. Or of course, you can always reach out to either the director or myself at any time, and we can include those items. Is there anything anybody would like to flag? Okay, then if there's nothing else, that brings us, oh, sorry, Nikki.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, of course.
I forgot to mention during my report that we've partnered with members of town council and NBBA and some other organizations to do a screening of the documentary Pasadena, Exploring Solutions to Reduce Gang Violence, especially around the recent bouts of shooting and violence that have been occurring. That's set to happen on February 21st, which is a Sunday at 1 o'clock. So we'll host it on our Zoom. It'll broadcast. People can sign up to be in the room, because following the documentary, we're going to have at least a couple panelists to take questions and talk more about the documentary and some of the recent issues. So I just wanted to let the board know, because that's going to happen before your next meeting.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, then if there's nothing else, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, any objection? All right,
Yep.
Hearing none, we are adjourned at 7:16 p.m. Thanks very much, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
Okay, bye.